So,
It's good to be with you.
yeah, thanks, Scott, for being here. Scott, as you mentioned, you're Watcher Palmer on YouTube, and I imagine that there are people who are watching this that already knew that, and there might be a few that watch this that'll be new to you and your channel. I love your channel. It's a lot about the gospel. Well, so I remember a long time ago you mentioned that the reason why you started this channel is because you were used to preaching the gospel as a mission president, and then it just stopped. And you were like, man, I got to do something. I want to share my testimony and talk about the gospel. And so you did
That's right.
this. And I've loved it. I've loved listening to your channel because you've got a lot of great insights, and it's just fun to talk about uplifting gospel stuff. So I like listening to it. But we got,
Thank you.
yes, I guess we met in person maybe a little over a year ago, and um yeah, I got to know you and Sue a little bit, and um it started a friendship, I guess. But I kind of look up to you a
Yeah.
little bit as someone who is has a lot of experience on both the spiritual preparedness and the physical preparedness side. Not that I mean, you mentioned just barely before this that you wouldn't necessarily call yourself an expert, but I would say that in a sense you are, because your whole life you have been trying to prepare spiritually and physically. So at least you have a lot of experience to draw from,
A lot of experience. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. A lot of experience.
which is
You can
which
always
is
find people that know way more, so it makes you feel like, yeah, I guess they really, but in a real sense, I have had a lot of experience. Yeah.
right. And definitely more experience than me, but um I have some experience. I think I can contribute. So I think what I was hoping for is maybe we could have a discussion on um both physical preparedness and spiritual preparedness. And I would like to maybe pick your brain on um physical preparedness items first, and just sort of figure out what are some things that you and Sue are doing to stay prepared from like a food storage and some of the more practical things, water storage and water filtration and survival tools. And you've got, you have family and stuff. How do you communicate if communications are down? And some of those things, what are some of the things that you and Sue have figured out that have helped you, power as well? If the power's out, how do you, use generators or solar or, whatever else? So I'm curious to know what kind of solutions you've come up with, and maybe in the midst of that, I'll have something to add it if it's,
Okay.
worthwhile.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Before I start, I have to tell you this. So you created these blankets, kind of blankets that you can actually put your feet in and wrap yourself around with it. I got to tell you a story that it didn't necessarily save my life, but it made my situation I was in very comfortable. Let me tell you what happened. So um, our little granddaughter is really in Texas, is really, had a lot of health issues and things going on. And she since has passed away, but I was, I was, I had to get down to Texas in a hurry. My wife was already there with our granddaughter, and I needed to be there, and I couldn't get a flight. So I jumped in my little Subaru, and in the back of it, I have this little, like, it's a little crate thing that I put all this stuff in that I feel like I'm going to need, and it's always there. I replenish it, with things I might use once in a while. But the blanket is number one that we purchased from you. It's awesome. So I'm driving to Texas, and I love to drive. It's not a burden for me. It's not scary for me. I love it. But about 4 o'clock in the morning, I was 60 miles north of Lubbock, Texas, going about 70 miles an hour, and out of nowhere, this big white-tailed buck came out and I smashed him. I feel bad actually that it's actually the only deer I've been able to take in the last like 8-10 years. It took my car. Well, I was able to get my car to I could still drive it somehow. The whole front end is basically gone. I get to a little tiny town that has a gas station, and I stopped there, and then I saw the radiator fluid leaking out and everything. And it was cold. It was, so we think of cold as, 20 degrees and below. We think, oh, that's pretty chilly. Well, in Texas, I would say if it's 30 or 40 degrees and the wind's blowing, it's so cold. It's a cold that I'm not used to. I'd rather have 10 below and sunshine here, right?
Right.
Well, I was stuck in my car, not able to go anywhere or do anything, not access anything, and I couldn't run my car. I wrapped myself in that blanket, put my feet in there, and I was toasty. I was shaken up, with the accident, but I ended up totaling that car. The insurance company told it, and I had to buy a new car when I finally got to Texas and I drove home. But anyway, I wanted to thank you for that.
Well, good.
And this is what I'm talking. This is what I'm talking about. It's so just some specific things that my wife and I have done. Some recently, some long term. We've always been, kind of preppers in a way. That's the kind of the nickname for people that want to prepare. But we grew up in the generation of Ezra Taft Benson and Spencer W. Kimball. These prophets that always talked about preparedness, being prepared, and being self-reliant, not depending on an agency, a government, or even the church to take care of you, right? So we've kind of always had that in the back of our mind, and we've always had some sort of food storage. When we were a young married couple, it was just, we need a few items. We're just going to buy a couple canned goods, right? Or rice or beans or things like that. We've always been into wheat. We've bought virtually every kind of wheat you can get, and we use it. We've had our own wheat grinder. We've gone through maybe 3 of those in our married life. And Sue makes bread. One year, we were real ski enthusiasts. We lived in Park City for 30 plus years. We all had season passes and everything. Well, I blew my knee out and had to have ACL surgery and wiped out my ski season. So I learned how to do the bread. So when everybody would go skiing, I would make bread. It was awesome.
Nice.
So I think one of the things that, it's one thing to have food storage, but you never use it and you don't know how you're going to eat it or consume it or rotate it. I've always felt frustrated with that. And my wife's been really good at knowing how to use it and rotate it. Keep it fresh. Now, we're not perfect at it, right? We're not perfect at it, but we're pretty good. And the grains that sit forever and ever in somebody's basement and never used, it's going to be losing nutritional value if it's not packaged right, especially. I know one guy that they ended up planting their field with used or like food storage wheat. They planted a whole field, acres of wheat, and it worked out just great. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah. But we've gone the route of when we could afford it, we were more prepared. We started getting a combination of long-term storage that you just kind of let sit there, and it's usually freeze-dried or some form of that. And we're not very good at rotating that. We have some that's probably 15 years old, but we recently, a year or two ago, we purchased a freeze dryer, and we use that. So what we'll do, we'll go to Costco. Everybody goes to Costco, right? And you get those roasted chickens, and they're probably not the best for you. There's probably all kinds of things in them. I don't know,
But they're
but
delicious.
we'll buy two, and we usually do, like, we'll make one, we'll shred it, and we'll do one for a couple of meals of a chicken salad, or something like that. The other one, we bone it all out, we get all the meat and everything, and then we freeze dry it. And you can reconstitute it. It is so good with a little steamed rice and some chicken on there that's already cooked, already seasoned, freeze dried, and you put them in the Mylar bags that last, I don't know, 20 years or whatever.
Right.
It's delicious. It's delicious. So we have a few of our children are fairly close by, and we always divvy it up between them, and we run it by their place. They don't have time for this. This is the old people stuff that, like me and my wife, we can do. Well, my wife's not, I am, but we enjoy it. We enjoy doing that kind of thing, helping them. So I love that aspect of freeze drying, because it's so much easier to store. The weight, it's almost weightless. Whether you're doing meats, we've done tons of vegetables, tons of all kinds of things, and it's just a fun. Now, it's an expense. It's not for the faint of heart. It makes a lot of noise. The unit itself is expensive. Not a lot of maintenance if you get the one that doesn't require changing the oil for the motor. You got the Mylar bags that you can get some less expensive ones on Amazon and whatnot. We've tried them, but we like the ones that come with the freeze dryer better. And you can reuse those over and over again. So they just get shorter, because you're cutting off the top, right?
Right.
But we found that that's really, really helpful for long-term storage. But if you can't get those, I'm always looking at deals for freeze-dried food. I've been eating freeze-dried food since it was invented. Before that, it was dehydrated food. There was an old company in Utah called Permapack, and for backpacking, right? Nobody ate it just to eat it.
Right.
And really, food storage wasn't like that kind of food storage was different back in the day. But I ate it for backpacking, and it wasn't very good. And it required a lot of cooking. And so things have progressed. And freeze-dried food is expensive, but not really when you boil it all down to how much it's going to feed individual people, the small space it can be stored in, and all that. So that's where we've gone for our long-term storage. We bottle a lot of, I don't call it canning because they're not cans, they're bottles, but we do, every year, peaches, pears, salsa, pickles, just all kinds of stuff. And so we have that, and we eat that regularly. So that just kind of goes. Do you want me to pause for a second, or
No, I was
you
just
have
gonna
any questions?
I was just gonna ask. So I know that you guys have a garden, but with
Yeah,
peaches and some of those other things, is that out of your house or do you go buy it?
we go by it. The only thing that we were able to do a ton of strawberries from our home, and raspberries and blackberries and apples. Our apple tree was amazing this year. First time, because we've only been in this area, this home, for 5 or 6 years, and we've never really had a big apple crop until last year, and it was amazing. And we did a ton of apples,
Hmm.
and freeze dried, right? And bottled for apple filling for pies and other things. We made applesauce, tons of applesauce which the grandkids love that. Everybody loves apples. So yeah, so peaches, I can't remember. Peaches we always buy.
Yeah.
We just head down Highway 89 in Utah up towards Tremont and and find them. So that's, that's iffy sometimes, I guess. But yeah, we don't grow those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do the same thing. We live just over the mountain from you to the north, and
Yeah.
we've planted peach trees, and it's just slightly too cold. We haven't been able to get them to last. Our apple trees do fine, except the last 2 years we've had so many grasshoppers that they've just destroyed everything in our garden and our trees, and it's been a challenge. But
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and we're surrounded by a field, which probably makes it worse. But the last couple of years we've had so many grasshoppers. We're hoping that um, it's like a we've heard that it's not common to have that, but it's like an every 20-year thing. You kind of get a kind of a lot of grasshoppers and stuff. So
Yeah.
we're crossing our fingers that we're had it for 2 years, and maybe this year will be better. I don't know, but
You'll have a better, yeah. I noticed that last year. We had tons of grasshoppers, not so much in our yard because we're kind of more in a regular neighborhood kind of thing, but just in other areas that we go hiking and stuff close by. Man, it was just like, they just hit your legs and fly everywhere, and the dogs would even be annoyed by them this year.
right,
So yeah, crazy.
yeah,
So one of the problems, or one of the, not problems, but one of the issues with hydrated food or freeze dried food is you need water.
right,
You have to have water. And we have these two massive storage. They're blue. They're not shaped like 55-gallon drums. They're, I don't know, kind of oblong, I guess. And they have a stand that sits on. We stack two of those. So I can't remember how much we have, maybe 400 gallons, maybe something like that. Uh, you kind of have to figure about 2 gallons, like bare minimum, about 2 gallons of water per day per person to kind of live, right? That's not bathing and all that kind of stuff, and probably not even washing much, dishes and things like that. It'd be more like camping. When you backpack and and water is not like just like right there, and you have to maybe hike to get it, or you carry it in even. You learn very quick how precious that water is,
right.
and you just don't even, this, you don't waste a drop, and then you come home and you turn on the faucet and let it run for 5 minutes till the water gets hot, and
Right.
we're just idiots sometimes. But camping and backpacking has really helped my mental state, I guess, as far as not being uncomfortable if things happen. Now, a couple of years ago, right here where we live in Mountain Green, our water system got compromised. It actually didn't, but one of the locks was broken to access into the storage where they store the drinking water, I guess, before it comes down into the homes. And so they were worried that maybe somebody had tampered with it. So they said, don't drink the water, right? Well, we not only had water storage, but we have probably 3 different types of water filters. From the backpacking one, the straw ones, the kind of the emergency ones, to a Catadine, more of a really pretty nice backpacking one, to these gravity fed ones that sit on your counter that you can really comfortably, a small family can use that for drinking water all the
Like a
time.
like a Berkey type one,
Yeah, I
or
think this one is Alexa Pure or
Alexa
something
Pure.
like
Yeah.
that. I think that's what it is.
Uh-huh.
And we have 2 of those. We just set it on the counter, poured our water in there, and felt totally fine. We weren't worried 1 second because of the filtering process. Now we have another purifier that's kind of plugged into the house, and so we don't always use our Alexa Pure. I have a daughter, the one in Texas. That's all they drink is that water. She uses it for cooking and drinking, and just uses that. And I'll admit that Texas water isn't as good as the Utah water, in my opinion. But through that purifier, it tastes awesome. And so, if you can, if water storage is difficult for a person, they don't have the space, they're in a small apartment, I would always have like a case of bottled water in that case, and I'd have a purifier because you can usually find a source of water. It just might not be the greatest source, but if you have, and these purifiers are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know that.
Yeah. In
And
fact,
so,
I just did a video on like water filters and purifiers just a day or two ago. I went through a few, but I was geeking out on YouTube today about the Alexa Pures and the Berkey, like those types of
yeah, yeah,
filters, and even some cheap ways to make well, they're not the same, not quite the same. They don't use quite the same filters, but kind of a knockoff Alexa Pure thing for $80, $70 with some 5-gallon buckets and stuff. You can do a pretty good um big filter for your family for pretty cheap. With they're not the filters themselves are not quite as good as the Alexa Pures, but they're better than nothing. No.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And there's so many options out there, but so you have some long-term storage. I'll tell you a quick story here in just a second. Long-term storage, you have um, stuff that you're going to use every day, and instead of buying, one item, if it's storable, buy 2, so that it's kind of like you have your own little storehouse. And a lot of people don't have the space for that, but if they don't have the space for it, they're probably not a ton of people either. So it doesn't require a whole lot. Several years ago, my wife and I, for an anniversary, went down to Belize to go scuba diving. And we went down there, and we went to church in this it was a little key called Ambergris Key. So it's a tiny little island. And there was an LDS church there in this little kind of home with a grass roof and no window, just kind of how you would picture it, It was so awesome. So we go there, and they told us a story because not too long before that, they'd had a hurricane go through there and just wiped out the area. And they evacuated as many as could go, but many couldn't. Like, they just didn't have the capability and couldn't leave. And this little tiny church became the hub of those that had to stay on the island. And what the members has done previous to that is every week, for kind of a community food storage, they would bring a little tiny, like a sandwich baggie of rice and beans, and bring it to the church. And we're talking a little tiny that you could probably hold in the palm of your hand of rice and beans. Well, that little collection of rice and beans these people had fed the community there until help and provisions could come, which was about 4 or 5 days before they could get anything. And they survived on these rice and beans. Now, a lot of people around here wouldn't even know how to cook beans.
Right.
That's just the truth, right?
Right.
They're not easy. Sometimes you have to cook H out of them to just to get them to be edible. But there's systems and there's ways to do it, and soaking and whatnot. But half the world lives off rice and beans, probably. I mean, I'm just shooting that off the top of my head. Somebody will say I'm wrong on that, but I bet I'm pretty close. It's a staple, and so my feeling, getting on a spiritual level, is if we do what we can in the situation we're in, if we're in a 1-bedroom apartment on the 10th floor and we have a little tiny deck and we have this, if you can have a little plant or two of something, and if you can have just a little bit of storage of something, I've always felt, and I've seen it happen time and time again, that the Lord qualifies your effort. And somehow, some way it works out.
Right.
When you're a newlywed couple and you're in a crappy apartment somewhere and you're just trying to, you're going to school, you're working, you're doing whatever, the little bit you do, the Lord will just magnify that effort. But what it does, I think, is it gets your mind thinking that way. So when you are traveling, when you are doing things, you're looking around you as well. You're kind of aware of surroundings more when you're preparing both physically and spiritually, or temporally and spiritually. There's a great quote. I have it here, and let me see if I can find it here. It's about Shackleton, Ernest Shackleton, and his exploration of the Antarctic. He crossed the whole continent of Antarctica. Endurance. The book's called Endurance. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. And there was a tribute, and it's an official, like, National Geographic tribute. These guys were all tied into the, Shackleton, Byrd, and Scott, and all these guys were tied to the National Geographic Society. But they did a tribute to him, and they said, for swift and efficient travel, give me Edmondson, and for scientific research, give me Scott. And then it said, but if you're in a fix where it looks like there's no way out, and that you're not going to survive, it said, get down on your knees and pray for Shackleton. He was that kind of a guy. And my view, the way the world is, the way the signs of the times, I feel like we're living in the time of tribulation, and it's just going to get more intense. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Before the Savior comes, we want to be the Shackletons of our family and our community. Instead of people thinking, well, he's not going to be any good, or she's not going to be any help, you want to be the person that they go, man, what would he do?
Yeah.
What would Greg do? What would Greg Reynolds do? If I could just talk to him, I know he could help me, right? That's the type of person I think that we should seek out to be, especially as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because we've been taught this. Now, some will say, well, the brethren really haven't talked about preparedness. Oh, I've got my yellow lab right out the door there, but
yeah,
I mean, I realize that they haven't spoke as much, the brethren, about this kind of thing, but in 2020, when we had that interesting earthquake in Utah, we also had COVID start, and then conference, right? And Elder Bednar gave a talk, and most of us that are into preparedness, we remember that talk because it reaffirmed that commitment that we should be prepared, and we should be the ones on the street, on the block, in the community that kind of knows what they're doing and can help others. Some people will say, well, if there's people pounding at your door, are you going to, help them or give them your food, or are you going to just hoard it to yourself? And I said, I never really think that way at all. I never even, it's I know they'll tell me who to help and how to help them. I've never thought of, sitting there with a gun to defend my food. That it just doesn't enter my mind. But if I can be of help to somebody, then I want to be the guy. I do. I want to be the guy. The last thing I would say that we really need is a source of power and energy. And this could be anything from a fire pit to a generator to solar, some battery type, storing. Uh, like I have this, I just have crap everywhere. So I use this thing a lot. This is a solar powered, you've seen these, and they're awesome. I use this thing all the time. I travel with it if I'm going to Israel or I'm going to, you know, uh, Central America or something, I have this. It keeps my cell phone going. I never worry about it. It kind of, people look at you kind of weird. I have, no, I won't show you this thing. It's just crazy. But it's a battery. It has all these plugs in here. This thing lasts forever. It's a lithium battery. I charge it up, and then I'll use this sometimes instead of plugging into an outlet because I can just take it with me anywhere I want to go. Right. A generator has its drawbacks. A gas generator, but I wouldn't be caught without one myself. They're fairly inexpensive. Storing gas is very difficult. I don't recommend it, but you can have some on hand. Most people have a gas operated, lawnmower or snowblower or something, and you have a couple of extra cans. That generator it could keep your freezer and fridges going in the middle of the summer, or it could keep something else going if you need it. It's a few lights. There's just some things. Now you can go extreme, and I don't, if you can afford it, awesome. But if you can't, don't worry about it. But there's generators that are solar. They're quiet. You can charge them, and then there's no fumes, there's no storage gas, but they're pretty limited as to what they can do. And as long as you know that and understand it, and they're fairly expensive, but I couldn't function without, I couldn't make my living as a YouTuber. I couldn't make my living doing that without the lights on. We actually have solar energy for our home. And we've only had a little over a year, and it has its drawbacks, but it's pretty amazing. It's a battery backed up one. So at night, the house runs on the batteries draw down. And then in the next day, the light comes on, the sun comes out. Now there's some days like we've had recently where you don't get a lot of charge, but overall, it's a pretty nice system.
Yeah.
So we're kind of into that though, but it's expensive and I don't recommend it. But what I would recommend is just some kind of backup battery for just even the smallest things, your phone, your computer, things like that.
Yeah. So
Now, the last thing you mentioned was communication.
right.
Communication is going to be huge. If we're cut off from communication, people go crazy really fast when they can't talk to somebody. And we have done virtually nothing on that, which I'm always thinking of satellite radios, but then those can get cut out. I'm not a ham operator. That's a pretty specialized, trade or learning curve on that. And guys that are into that and people, it's awesome. But I do have handheld ones that we use for hunting or hiking, but you have to be, fairly close. I can talk to one son on that, and he has a radio and I have a radio, and that's it.
Yeah.
So what ideas do you have on the communication part?
Well, that's a like you said, that's a challenge. The GMRS style
Mhm.
radios, if your line of sight, they can get some pretty good distance. I think there's a few repeaters on the mountains around our little valley that allow us to get signals over the mountain. So
Yeah.
my in-laws are in just over the mountain in Pleasant View. I would be able to talk to them because of that repeater. If that repeater's gone, I can't unless I hike to the top of the mountain. Um, my parents are in Clinton. If
Oh
I
yeah.
was at the top of the mountain, I might be able to get them. Line of sight, 30 miles or 20 miles or something, I might be able to get them. But yeah, it's a challenge. I have a road bike and some spandex padded shorts, and I figure that if things get crazy and I can't talk, I'll go ride to my parents' house and check on them and then ride back or something. But it's a challenge because without a ham radio, you really can't talk very far unless you're line of sight.
That's right. That's exactly what I found too. Um, we do have some e-bikes, my wife and I,
Mhm.
and we're I have them outfitted that I can pull a trailer with one. So, and we use them enough to. I mean, hey, we're getting old, The balance isn't always there, but we ride them enough just for that reason. That if we need it to go over and be with family somewhere, because we have, it'd be a couple of them would be a bit of a journey, but we could do it. And you can also pedal these bikes, and so either way it goes. But yeah, we've thought of that as well
Yeah,
as a bike. We have a trailer that we like to keep outfitted, like a camp trailer, because we love to do that as well. And that thing's outfitted.
right.
Like I I could hook onto that and sleeping bags and food and water and all that kind of stuff. It's ready to rock
Right.
if we have to. Some people think that we're just hoping and praying for disaster
Mhm.
because you want to try out all this stuff you've done. But that really isn't that's not where we're at.
No.
It's just a lifestyle of I don't know, just looking at what's going on in the world, kind of being, because if you're not watching for that, it's really hard to kind of see what's going on. We could really see the supply chain before it became news, shutting down. And I'm sure you could too.
Yeah.
And then once it became news, we were like, well, yeah. Like the toilet paper thing that happened in with COVID and all that and the earthquake. We didn't care.
Right.
Like we already had not like crazy storage, but enough that we didn't need to worry for quite a while, right? Isn't that funny that toilet paper was the thing? That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It is wild. I remember talking to a friend, and we were kind of joking about the toilet paper thing, and they said, I mean, what do you do when you run out? And I said, do you have a washcloth and some soap and water? They're like, oh yeah, of course. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, why not? Like, and
It's
I felt
it's
like
not it's like
we're so insulated from in our lives from common sense in some cases, but just so insulated from everything that, you know, like you mentioned, half the world lives off of beans and rice. Well, half the world, you know, power goes out, power goes down, or whatever, they continue with life and don't panic.
Exactly.
The other half, especially America, we like, I don't know what to do. The power's out for a few days and they don't know what's going on, and there's rioting in the streets, and it's like I, in our family, we pull out the board games and we have a great time because I'm not working, and heck, we're playing as a family, and it's like camping with better beds. It's just it's fun. Yeah,
It's fun.
I'm not hoping for natural disasters, but
No,
there's a part of
no.
me that's like, if it happens, I'm kind of excited about it. Not that I want it to happen, but I don't freak out because I'm ready for it. And I'm not perfectly ready. It's not like I could live forever or anything, and it would be uncomfortable in certain ways. But
But you don't fear it. You don't
I
live
don't
in
fear.
fear.
No, and
Yeah. And I think that's the key, is not living in fear of what's, I know, I mean, scripturally, it just read section 1 of the Doctrine and Covenants, and that should get you ready for what lies ahead.
right.
And we're in it. It's everything is escalating so fast. I just heard this morning that Israel bombed the the Iranian embassy in Damascus, Syria, bombed it.
Whoa,
I mean, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just saying
that's a big one.
the, that's a big one.
Right.
They said it's never happened before. They've never done that. All the bombing and all the exchange back and forth, and they killed a really high up guy. Excuse me. And so you look at that. You look at what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. I won't get political here because I don't want to ruin your channel here, but because I can do that really quick.
Me too.
But what these things, these are, we're no longer just what happens here stays here and what happens over here stays here. It's not like that anymore. It's immediate reaction. We immediately hear about it, and then there's a reaction. There's a reaction by governments. There's a reaction by individuals. The way children are educated, it just happens so fast. And if we're not on top of that, we just get blindsided. We're just gonna get blindsided. So it's a combination of keeping, not getting overwhelmed, but keeping up on what's going on.
Right.
Like I bet you're the kind of guy. You're like me. It's not like a conscious thing. It's just subconscious. You walk into a room and you just immediately kind of assess, what's going on, like a restaurant or a theater or whatever. You're not looking at your phone, just walking in and then sitting down. You're not that type of guy, I can tell, and I'm not that type of guy. You walk in, you look around, you kind of just see how things are, and then you're not being obnoxious, you're not overboard, but you're just kind of aware.
Yeah.
I don't watch a ton of news because I don't believe most of it anyway, but I try to keep up on sources that I trust in, but I don't get consumed with it. But it keeps you up. But if we read our scriptures, dang, they dealt with all this stuff already,
Right.
and we can learn so much. I've really enjoyed the Old Testament as we went through that and saw all the preparedness stories in there. I mean, we had Joseph in Egypt. The 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine. You had, I mean, you had Gideon who I won't go through all of them, but you just have all the story after story after story of people preparing, not only for natural things to happen, like famines and disasters and things like that, but really committing themselves, like Abraham committing. He was a stone rolling down a mountain that couldn't be stopped because he had committed to serve the Lord, even to the point of saying, you want my only son that I waited all these years? Okay. That's to me where I want to be, is that commitment. And then everything else ties together. It's not like, oh, you're a preparedness guy, so that's what you're into, or you're a spiritual guy and that's what you're into. All these things are connected. You can't separate these things.
Right.
And I think too many people do. I think they say, well, that's for kind of the crazy people that like to do all that kind of stuff. I'm not into that. Well, might be something that we should work on, because if you are preparing this way, then you're going to be more inclined to prepare this way as well, and you're going to be more inclined to be watching for what's around the corner.
Right.
I remember years ago taking ski lessons. I felt like I'd got to a point where I could do most things, but I just thought there's got to be some more I can learn. And this ski instructor was awesome. And he said, I can immediately tell what you're doing wrong. He says, you have all the technique, you're doing this, you're doing that. But he said, you're not looking out far enough in front of you. You're looking too close in front of you. And so you're surprised all the time as to what's coming ahead, because you don't keep your head up enough. And I've thought about that over and over again over the years, that's what most of us do in life. I think we're just looking right in front of our nose, trying to kind of in survival mode of, okay, I got to do this, I got to pay this bill, I got to go to work, I got to, we just check off the list and then we collapse in bed and start again the next morning. And I think if we just look up a little bit more and see the horizon just a little bit, we won't be so caught off guard. And these moguls that pop up won't be such a surprise to us. Our brain will already go, oh, there's that one, that one, that one, that one. And then your body will react immediately because you've already seen them. The brain is amazing, and it's already telling your muscles what you're going to be doing 2 and 3 and 4 moves down the road if you see them. But if you don't see them, it's a surprise. So I think for preparedness on every level, we need to look up.
Absolutely. That's great. So I have to apologize. I realized when I was getting my computer set up that I left my little charger plug thing at work. And so luckily I was at 99% when we started. I'm now at 7%. So
Let's end it. We're done. It's
so
good. This has been good. People
let's
don't
wrap
want to
this
listen
up.
to all this.
But I wanna
Yeah.
you already gave kind of a good spiritual lesson there. That the scriptures help. We have the examples in the scriptures. Look a little further ahead so you know what's coming up, so you're not surprised by things. When you're prepared spiritually, you have confidence in the Lord that He'll qualify your preparation, that we don't have to fret what's coming. We can be happy, we can be excited, we can be, eager to help our neighbors when they are in need and those types of things. So there's that. I wanted to mention back during the COVID year, it was the Book of Mormon. I think it was Book of Mormon year, right? And
Yeah, and we've gone full circle now. We're back to the Book of
right.
Mormon again. You're exactly right.
And I remember that year we'd read the chapters for that week and then look at the news and it's like, that's exactly what's going on today. And then the next week it would be the same thing, and the next week it would be the same thing. And it's almost like it was written for our day. I mean, it's kind of like that. But I think about it, and it's become more real to me even lately. But Moroni was shown our day. Nephi was shown the beginning to the end, including our day. Isaiah, same thing. Joseph Smith saw it. I personally believe, I've heard that this is true. I don't know. I haven't asked him, but I've heard some reputable scholars from BYU say that every current prophet has been shown, whether he's been shown all of it or whether he's been shown what he needs to know for his stewardship. I don't know, but he's seen many things that we haven't. He's preparing us for what we need. But frankly, we have the scriptures, the Book of Mormon in particular, but even, all the scriptures. We've got the Book of Revelation. If what's happened the last few years, if you haven't opened the Book of Revelation, well, then do it and read, and oh, John saw exactly what we've been going through, right?
Exactly right.
Vials being poured out and those types of things. And it's like, so if you're nervous about the future, open the scriptures and read about it, and then you won't be surprised. And follow
Perfectly
the
said.
follow the counsel of the prophets, and you won't be unprepared. And Elder Bednar, you mentioned Elder Bednar. I think President Nelson might have said at one point, it was one of them. I remember in General Conference, though, he said, talking about spiritual preparation, he said, as important as physical preparation is spiritual preparation. And I remember that talk was on spiritual preparation. I don't think it was the talk where he talked about the temple, but it might have been. But he talked about spiritual preparation being as important as temporal physical preparation. And I remember talking to people, and they said, "Oh, I love that talk and how important spiritual preparation." And I remember there was a big emphasis on spiritual preparation. And what I heard was they're both important.
Yeah,
Because
that's exactly right.
in my opinion, you've got kind of the two extremes of the spectrum. The one side says, I need to be physically prepared for everything. But there's like a lack of trust in the Lord, I guess, and a lack of trust in things, and you're trusting too much in the arm of flesh. Or the other side is, I'm completely unprepared physically, but I trust God will take care of me. It's like that middle ground is sort of the sweet spot. You got to do what we can do because the Lord has commanded us to, but we got to know that He can take care of us, just like He did the children of Israel. He's got the capacity to, He's got the ability to. But we got to do what we can while we can. That's part of faith. That's part of our responsibility. And frankly, I feel like as members of the church, we have some responsibility to take care of our neighbors that aren't members of the church. Not that we have to take care of everything, but we've been given a lot of information and a lot of time to prepare that some of our friends don't have as not members of
That's
the church.
exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right.
And so I feel some responsibility to be able to not take care of everything, but help out and calm and kind of, if things are bad and neighbors are in need, I want to be able to be that Shackleton that is able to, help and stuff.
Yeah,
So, but anyway, that's, I guess, my 2 cents on
so
this,
well said.
on the spiritual side.
No, so well said. So good. I've thought recently that everything we see and hear, we need to filter it through the Holy Ghost and the scriptures and prophets. And if it filters through those, we're safe. We're in a good place because there's so many voices out there. There's just, we're just inundated with information, and a lot of it is not correct, in my opinion.
Right.
And so we filter it through that, and then we do the best we can. We get up in the morning, we do the best we can. We don't get down on ourselves. We don't feel like, well, so and so has done more than I have, so I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. It just doesn't, that, that doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't get us to where we want to be.
Right.
And so I think your comments are perfect, spot on. I loved it.
Well, great. Well, I wish, and I wish we could talk for another hour, but
We'll do another one. We'll do another one.
sounds good. That sounds great to me. Thank you so much for
Welcome.
this conversation. This was fun, and um, yeah, I enjoyed this. I'd love to talk about this stuff again. So we'll look forward to that next time. And for those that are watching this channel for the first time uh or not, go check out Brother Palmer's channel, Watcher Palmer. He's got
Thank you.
great insights, great messages every few days, and I really enjoy that. And then of course you can subscribe to this channel as well, and we'll have more information on physical, temporal, and spiritual preparedness as we prepare for the second coming. So looking forward to
Awesome.
that. So all right.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.